Hi guys and welcome to another video. In today's video we're actually going to do something a little bit different. If you've been following the channel recently, there has been a lot of new additions to my camera collection, and in this video I want to go through each of the different cameras and talk about what I like about them, what I dislike about them, and maybe if they're being sold or not. There's a lot of cameras here, so I'm going to timestamp loads of things on the screen now. There should also be chapters across the bottom, so you can hop around this video if you'd like. We're going to start off with digital, then we're going to move to film. A lot of people do this with watches, and I really enjoy kind of understanding how cameras fit or watches fit into people's collections. And I get quite a lot of questions asked on things like Instagram, like how do you own an X Pro 3 and an X100V at the same time? Aren't they essentially the same camera? Does it make sense owning both? And to be honest, for me, I don't think it does, but we're going to get onto that. So let's kick this off then, digital first. So there's three cameras here that all share the same sensor. That is the X Pro 3, the X100V, and the Fuji X-T4 that we're recording this video on now. And even though these cameras have the same sensor, they are three very, very different form factors. The X Pro 3 is probably the oddest one. It doesn't have a rear screen until you fold it down. You're gonna either love or hate that. It is interchangeable, so you can stick different lenses on it. This has currently got the 23mm f2 on there. And then you've got the X100V, which is by far the smallest of the bunch. It's got a leaf shutter and a built-in ND filter, but is a fixed focal length lens. However, you can get some adapters to change it to 28mm and to 50mm. As standard though, it's a 35mm in terms of full frame equivalent, that is. So I think first of all then, let's talk these two cameras. Now I personally struggle to pick up the X Pro 3. Now I think there is a bit more to it than just these two cameras actually, and that's that I think this looks a little bit more like this when it comes to picking a camera. I've got my M6, which is fully film, I've got my X100V that feels fully digital, and I've got the X Pro 3 that's trying to be a little bit like the M6, but also a little bit like the X100V. Now, for me personally, if I want that film-like experience, I pick up my M6. And if I want a digital experience, I find myself gravitating towards the X100V because I like the smaller form factor and I like the ND filter. I don't get much value out of the leaf shutter, but the ND in there makes me pick it up quite a lot. So unfortunately for me, the X Pro 3 is going to be sold very, very soon in the near future. The other camera then, in terms of keeping to that same sensor, is the X-T4 that we're recording this video on now. From a photography point of view, it's probably my best camera here when it comes to tech. But for me, on my YouTube channel, it's the main workhorse of the channel in terms of video. When it comes to the X-T4, I find myself probably 90% of the time doing video and just 10% doing photos. And it's when it comes to video that I actually have a few gripes with the camera. The biggest one for me is the IBIS wobble and some pretty dodgy autofocus at times. Sat here like this is absolutely fine, it generally keeps in focus, and you obviously don't get any IBIS wobble because it's mounted statically. However, if I carry this camera around, you get quite a bit of wobble with the IBIS if you're using a wide angle lens like the 10-24 that we're on right this minute. And because of that, most of my walking out and about footage that you see on this YouTube channel is actually my iPhone 11. And it's pretty bad, I think, that for video I find myself gravitating towards my iPhone rather than the kind of 2 rounds worth of camera and lens that I also have with me at the time. I do, however, still think this is the best mirrorless hybrid camera that you can buy for the money. For £1,000, I'm not sure what other camera I would buy instead. But I have now upgraded the X-T4 to a different camera that is a lot more expensive that will be featured on the channel very, very soon as it comes tomorrow. When it comes to lens choices, the lenses that I use on the Fujis, the interchangeable ones, is first of all the 23mm prime. I've also got, but not on the table, a 35mm prime. Those two lenses are spot on. Small, lightweight, cheap, weather sealed. I literally couldn't ask for anything more with those. The autofocus is amazing and I've loved those lenses to the point that I've never really felt the need to upgrade to the f1.4 lenses, and then the really new ones, they're a lot of extra money for essentially weather sealing and 1 or 2 extra stops of light. So I've decided not to upgrade them primes because I just love them how they are. I like the small, lightweight size. When it comes to zoom lenses, this lens here is probably the lens that surprised me most, and you probably know this from the channel if you've been around a while, is actually the 70-300 for photos. This lens is incredible. The fact that you can fit this in a small bag and get a, I think it must be, what, 120 to 450 mil zoom in a small camera bag. Unbelievable. And I really like the stabilization as well. It works out very, very well for video. My most used lens is typically this one, which is the 16 to 55mm f2.8. Exceptionally good lens. The f2.8 is really helpful. Most of my YouTube videos are recorded on it except for this one because I needed a bit more width to get all the cameras in. So on the camera is the 10 to 24mm. The one that I struggle with ibis wobble, and it's the lens that I want to use for video because it's the focal length that kind of suits out and about videoing, a little bit of vlogging, that sort of thing. I guess we then end up with another comparison with the X100V, and that's a recent acquisition of mine, the Leica Q. Now I actually swapped this for a Leica M6 that I had that I wasn't really enjoying, and I really enjoyed using this camera. The problem again with this camera is just how good the X100V is. I'm very, very torn between these two cameras on which one to keep. I like the weather sealing, I like the ND. I don't really make that much use of the leaf shutter in here, but I really like the full frame. I like the f1.7. The 28mm is the lens I'd rather use, but then you stick the adapter on this, it's also 28mm, and then the lenses are kind of the same, they stick out the same amount. I'm really struggling between the two, but there is a video coming to the channel very soon that's kind of a very in-detailed comparison of these two cameras that will probably help me make my own decision whilst I'm recording that video, and also hopefully help you guys if you're interested in it. My final digital camera then, I guess, is arguably my little tiny GoPro 8. Really good for POVs, that sort of thing. Also obviously great to go and get wet if you go and swimming and things like that, which we've done recently. I probably don't use it enough, and I think a lot of people that buy GoPros feel that way, that they buy them, use them for the thing they had in mind, and then they sit in the drawer. I really do want to use it more. I want to do some more POV videos for the channel, so expect to see a little bit more of this. Really, really good, but pretty niche in terms of what they can be used for. I think then we're probably on to film cameras. I think we're going to start off with my Rollei 35 and my Nikon L35AF. It was actually free. There is a video coming very, very soon. Hopefully we'll raise a little bit of money for charity as well. But this camera was gifted to me because there is a slight problem with it, but I'll delve into that a little bit more in the video that's upcoming. It is fully automatic, it has autofocus, it has a pop-up flash that will pop up if it's needed. The flash is actually really good as well. The camera seems to expose very, very well for that. All you have to do is set the ISO of your film and shoot away. To me personally, the camera that kind of overlaps with this one is the Rollei 35. If you're a fan of the channel, you'll know that I absolutely love this camera. Unlike the L35, this is fully manual. You've got an aperture dial, a shutter speed dial, you have to manually focus. My light meter's knackered, so you either have to use Sunny 16 or use a phone app or a light meter if you've got one. But the lens on the front of this camera is a Zeiss lens, and it's honestly incredible. The camera's from 1968. I've had it for, I think, 4 years at this point maybe, and I've absolutely loved shooting with it. It's so much fun to use that my girlfriend Claire, she has also picked one of these up. She's not really into film photography, but enjoyed using this one so much that she wanted her own. And that probably says a lot in terms of just how good this camera is, and also how reasonably accessible it is in terms of being able to use it as well, even though it's fully manual. If it wasn't for the fact that the Nikon was a freebie, the Rollei 35 would be the one of these two cameras that I keep. This is one of two cameras on this table that I don't think I will ever sell, and you'll have to fight me for if you want them off of me. The other camera then, and you can probably guess that will never be sold, is my Leica M6. I absolutely love this camera, and all of the hype around this camera I think personally is justified. I really, really enjoy using this camera, and that's the main appeal of this camera, is the enjoyment to use it. If I want to shoot film, I typically want to slow down and enjoy the process, and this is a camera that I feel really, really helps me enjoy that process. I personally use Voigtlander lenses rather than Leica lenses. I have owned Leica glass in the past, and to be honest, I don't think it's worth it price-wise these days. Voigtlander glass is very, very good. Most people can't tell the difference. And if you're shooting film, I quite like the character of some of these lenses anyway. The other lens that I use frequently is another Voigtlander. The 28mm is on the camera. The 50mm is the one I have here. 50mm f1.5. Nice blurry backgrounds, really good focal length. I absolutely love those two Voigtlander lenses. The next film camera then is the Olympus OM4TI. I bought this camera because it was going very, very cheap in a local camera store, and I just couldn't resist picking it up. Since the video that I made on this camera, I haven't used it very often. The kind of digital side of this camera, so some of the tech inside of here for spot metering, is very, very good. And if you're shooting film and really know you want to get good results and kind of precise results, this is a very, very good camera for that. The price is actually pretty good as well. These cameras can be picked up for £200 to £300. The lens on the front, you can get different ones for less than 50 quid. So price wise, build quality wise, performance wise, there is literally nothing not to like here. They're also pretty small and compact, which I like as well. The problem for this camera is the fact that it sits in a collection alongside the M6. If I want to shoot film, I'm picking up this guy, not this guy. Therefore, this camera is being sold in the near future, not through any fault of its own, just is here with some pretty strong competition. My last film camera then is my Yashica Mat 124G. This is the only medium format camera here. You might not want to hear my opinions of this camera, especially if you own one, and I don't really like it. And I am a little bit biased because I bought this camera in perfect operating condition, or at least that's what the advert said. My very first roll of film that I shot through this camera, we got about halfway through the roll, jammed. The only way I could stop the camera from being jammed was to open the back, ruining my exposure that I'd already made. I think since then I've probably shot maybe 6 rolls of film through the camera, and I think maybe only 2 rolls have gone all the way through the camera with no problems. I've got a little bit better at trying to troubleshoot the problems, but those problems have made the experience for me just a bit too much. Film's expensive, I don't like ruining film, and I don't like ruining shots. In terms of the square format, I don't love it, don't hate it. It's a bit different, which is what I wanted this camera for. I wanted it to be a little bit different. The bit that my brain just cannot comprehend is when you look down through the, I don't know what the screen, through the ground glass, is that it's reflected. So when you're trying to frame things, you have to kind of do the opposite of what you want to do for it to kind of frame correctly. And I imagine a lot of people naturally get very good at that, but it just blows my mind, and it's not something that I've got very good at doing. If you have any questions about any of these cameras that are here, and you want to know some more information about them, or how I think they overlap in terms of the collection, then feel free to hit me up down in the comments and I'll get back to you. I kind of want to spark a bit of a discussion really, because I've got too many cameras and I know it. But I just wanted to update you guys on why I've got all these cameras and which ones I'm actually keeping, just to kind of be real with you. And I think it'd be quite fun to look back at this video maybe a year's time and see what cameras there is that I've still got. Did I go through with selling what I said I was selling? Do I regret selling maybe the X-Pro 3? Who knows, but I'm sure we'll recap on this in a year's time. If you've enjoyed this video though guys, please do not forget to like and subscribe. Plenty more content like this coming, and I think it's been nice just to sit and have a chat rather than it be about reviews all the time. Thank you for watching, cheers.